They told her to prepare for the worst. Not the kind of worst where a flag is folded neatly and handed over, but the kind where the body comes home, and the man inside it doesn't. When Sergeant Daniel Harper stepped off the military transport plane, he was alive, breathing, standing, walking. But the moment his wife ran into his arms, he hugged her like she was a stranger. And the only one who noticed the truth before anyone else was his dog. 8 months earlier, Daniel had kissed Melissa goodbye at the airport. "Take care of Ranger," he had said, kneeling down to scratch behind the German Shepherd's ears. "Don't let him steal your side of the bed." Ranger had barked once, confused but trusting. Daniel always came back from training. He would come back from this too. But war does not make promises. An explosion during a night convoy changed everything. The blast didn't kill him. It shattered something far more fragile. His memory. When a call came, Melissa felt her world tilt. "He's alive," the officer said gently. "But there's brain trauma. We don't know how much he'll remember." Those words echoed in her mind for weeks. How much he'll remember. The day Daniel was released from the military hospital, Melissa stood outside the rehabilitation center with Ranger sitting beside her. Ranger had been different since Daniel left. He waited by the door every evening. He refused to eat some nights. He slept facing the entrance, as if guarding a memory. The doors opened. Daniel walked out slowly. His posture was straight, his uniform pressed, his eyes distant. Melissa ran toward him. "Daniel." She threw her arms around his neck. He hesitated. Then he hugged her back, carefully, politely, like he wasn't sure how tight was appropriate. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The words weren't emotional. They were apologetic. "I know I should feel more. I just don't." Her hands began to shake. "Do you remember me?" He looked at her face with concentration. "I know you're my wife," he said slowly. "I was told that. Told that. Not remembered." Behind her, Ranger stood up. His ears were high, his body tense. Melissa stepped aside. "Daniel, look." Daniel turned. The German shepherd stared at him, silent, waiting. Daniel frowned slightly. "That's my dog," he said uncertainly. "Yes," Melissa whispered. "That's Ranger." Daniel knelt down stiffly. "Hey, boy." Ranger didn't move. Not yet. He studied Daniel's face the way soldiers study terrain. Carefully, suspiciously. Then Ranger took one slow step forward. And another. He stopped inches away. Daniel reached out his hand. Ranger sniffed it. The air felt heavy. Then softly, Ranger placed his paw on Daniel's knee, and Daniel's fingers moved instinctively. He scratched behind Ranger's left ear, exactly the way he always had. Ranger froze. His tail began to wag, slow at first, then faster, then uncontrollable. And suddenly he pressed his entire body into Daniel's chest, whining in a way that sounded almost human. Daniel gasped softly. I know this feeling." His voice cracked. "I don't remember, but I know this." Tears slid down Melissa's face. Because sometimes love does not disappear. It hides. The doctors explain it carefully. His procedural memory is intact. Muscle memory. Habits. But emotional recall may take time. Time felt cruel. At home, everything felt unfamiliar to Daniel. The couch felt new. The kitchen felt borrowed. The photographs on the walls felt like someone else's life. He stood in front of a framed wedding picture one afternoon. "That's me," he said quietly. Melissa nodded. "You were nervous. You kept adjusting your tie." He smiled faintly. "I look happy." "You were." He touched the glass. "I want to remember feeling that." Behind him, Ranger rested his head against Daniel's leg. Daniel looked down. At least this felt real. Every morning, without being told, Daniel poured dog food into Ranger's bowl. He didn't know why. His body just did it. Every evening, he walked toward the closet and grabbed the leash. Even when he forgot where he put his car keys. Even when he forgot what they had talked about that morning. He never forgot Ranger's walk. Recovery was not gentle. Some nights Daniel woke up shouting, sweating, breathing like he was still in the convoy. He couldn't remember the explosion clearly, but his body remembered fear. One night, he jolted upright, gasping. Melissa reached for him. He flinched, but before she could speak, Ranger jumped onto the bed. He pressed his body firmly against Daniel's chest, grounding him. Steady, heavy. Daniel's breathing slowed. His shaking eased. He buried his face in a Ranger's fur. "I don't know what happened," he whispered. Ranger didn't need details. He just stayed, and sometimes staying is enough. 3 months into recovery, Daniel attended cognitive therapy sessions. One afternoon, the therapist placed several objects on a table. A watch, a photograph, a military patch, and a tennis ball. Daniel stared at the ball. Something stirred. A flicker. "Why does this feel important?" he asked. Melissa swallowed. "That's Ranger's favorite." Daniel picked it up slowly. The room was silent. He squeezed it once, twice, and without thinking, he whistled. A sharp two-note whistle. From a hallway, Ranger sprinted in. Full speed. He slid across the floor and sat directly in front of Daniel, eyes shining. The therapist's pen froze midair. Daniel stared at Ranger. "Did I teach him that?" Melissa nodded through tears. "You used that whistle when you wanted him to come." Daniel laughed softly. That's ours." It wasn't a full memory, but it was a doorway. Weeks passed. Progress came slowly. Daniel still forgot appointments. He still asked Melissa questions he had asked the day before. But one evening changed everything. It was quiet. Golden sunset light spilled into the backyard. Daniel sat on the grass, absently holding the tennis ball. Ranger stood in front of him, tail gently swaying. Daniel threw the ball. Ranger chased it and returned immediately, dropping it at Daniel's feet. Too close. Daniel stared at it, and without thinking, he smiled and said, "You always cheat and drop it too close." Melissa froze at the kitchen window. That was his sentence, his exact words. Every single time. Daniel blinked. "Why does that feel familiar?" Melissa stepped outside slowly. "Because you've said 100 times. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, his eyes softened in recognition. Not logical recognition, not factual memory, emotional recognition. "I don't remember the wedding," he said quietly. "I don't remember the airport goodbye." His voice trembled. "But when I look at you, it feels like home." Melissa broke, and Ranger barked once, as if approving the answer. Recovery didn't mean perfection. Daniel never regained every memory. Some pieces were lost forever, but something stronger replaced them. Intentional love. He chose Melissa every day, even when his mind struggled. He chose Ranger every morning, even when yesterday felt blurry. And Ranger never hesitated, never questioned, never doubted. Because to a dog, love is not stored in memory, is stored in loyalty. 1 year later, Daniel stood at a small community event honoring returning veterans. He held the microphone with steady hands. Melissa stood in the crowd. Ranger sat proudly beside her. "I lost pieces of myself overseas," Daniel said, "and I may never get them all back." The crowd was silent, but I learned something important. He looked at Ranger. Memory can fade. He looked at Melissa. Fear can change you. Then he smiled softly. But love waits. Applause filled the air. Ranger barked loudly, tail wagging wildly. And for the first time since the explosion, Daniel felt whole. Not because he remembered everything, but because the ones who loved him never forgot him. War may steal memories. Time may blur the past. But true loyalty does not live in the mind. It lives in the heart, and the heart never forgets. Did Max's loyalty make you emotional too? Comment loyalty below if you believe dogs are the most loyal friends in the world. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful animal stories.